30 kilometers away, lies one of the most beautiful and peaceful destinations along the shores of Lake Malawi. Chitsulo Lodge, named after Bishop Chitsulo, the first bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Dedza. This magnificent lakeside lodge offers comfort, relaxation, hospitality, and tranquility away from the busy noise of everyday life. From the very moment guests arrive, the cool lake breeze, peaceful environment, and warm smiles from the staff immediately create a feeling of being truly at home.
Chitsulo Lodge and Conference Center offers guests a unique combination of peace, comfort, hospitality, and natural beauty. Apart from our accommodation and conference services, the calm environment along Lake Malawi gives people an opportunity to truly relax and refresh themselves. We welcome families, tourists, organizations, and all visitors to come and experience the beautiful place for themselves.
The lodge offers magnificent self-contained rooms equipped with comfortable beddings, elegant shower compartments, flushing toilets, air conditioners, and modern facilities designed to give guests maximum comfort. Guests also enjoy delicious meals, professionally prepared and served in a spacious and beautifully arranged restaurant. Ideal for conferences, retreats, seminars, family holidays, and spiritual reflections, Chitsulo Lodge creates unforgettable lakeside moments that refresh both body and soul.
I stand to encourage priests, religious sisters and brothers, families and individual Christians, as well as different apostolates in the church, not forgetting Christians from other Christian denominations to come and patronize us at Chitsulo Lodge and Conference Center.
Chitsulo Lodge for relaxation, for comfort, for spiritual renewal, for unforgettable moments along Lake Malawi. Your destination is Chitsulo Lodge. Chitsulo Lodge, a heaven along the lake.
Announcement: Transition to cashless ticketing. Malawi Airlines would like to inform all valued customers that effective 1st May, all ticket purchases will be conducted exclusively through cashless transactions. As part of this transition, payment will be accepted via bank transfers and POS machines for various banks available at our offices. This measure is designed to streamline our processes, reduce transaction times, and ensure a safer, more secure way of completing bookings. Cashless ticketing will complement our existing online booking platforms, our website, and our mobile application while aligning with global aviation practices that embrace digital payment solutions. We encourage all customers to prepare for this change by making use of the available electronic payment facilities. Our sales and airport staff will be available to guide and assist customers during this transition. For further assistance, please contact our customer service team via customerrelations@malawianairlines.com or call our support line. We remain committed to serving you with dignity, efficiency, and care as we embrace this new chapter. This announcement is brought to you by Malawi Airlines Management.
Malawi Airlines, from the warm heart of Africa.
tikulandireni katikati mwa chipinda chimene tili ku Bingu International Convention Center kumene unduna makamaka wa zachuma uli ndi zoti ufotokoze ku mtundu wa Malawi. Ine ndi Moses Magawa ndipo timafuna tikudzutseni kuti kodi kumene muli kwa chabwanji kuno ku Lilongwe kukuoneka ndithu kadzuwa kalipo kunjaku, ndipo mchipinda chino mwasonkhana anthu osiyanasiyana amene tikaunikira komanso tikaonesetsa ali mchiyembekezo kuti kodi unduna wa zachuma umene umatsogozedwa ndi Honorable Joseph Mwanamveka watibwereseranji mmawa tsiku la lero. Tikaona ndithu muno muli chi big screen chimene chikuonetsera kuti it's a national economic convention imene recovery plan rather imene aitana anthu osiyanasiyana amene mdziko muno amapanga nawo ziganizo zosiyanasiyana. Pali nkhani imene akufuna afotokoze kuti kodi chuma ngati boma akuchika bwanji komanso ayika njira zotani kuti mwina nkutheka chumachi chikhoza kuchira kubwereranso mchimake. Tikumbukire bwino lomwe kuti Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika atalumbira kukhala mtsogoleri wa dziko lino adanena kuti pali zinthu zinayi zimene akufuna ataziunikira: nkhani ya fuel, fertilizer komanso food, chakudya, osaiwala nkhani ya forex. Mdziko muno takhala ndithu tikukambirana komanso tikuunikirana kuti kodi moving forward tingachite mwa mtundu wanji pa nkhani yochiritsa chuma chathu. Ndipo nkhani za ulimi zakhala zikumanga mthenje kuti kodi nkhani za fetereza zikhala mwa mtundu wanji, kodi boma likukonza njira zanji kuti tithane ndi njala, tithane ndi vuto la kusowa kwa mafuta. Ino ndine pano takhala ndithu tikumayimba nyimbo imodzimodzi kuti yayi mwina mafuta akusowa, chikuchitika nchiyani. Boma kodi likuganiza motani pa nkhani zosiyanasiyana ngati zimenezi, nkhani zosiyanasiyana ngati nkhani za ndalama zakunja, chifukwa ino ndine pano ndife anthu amene timadalira kwambiri kuti ndalama yakunja ikakhazikika mdziko muno ndiye kuti chuma chathu chimakhala kuti nachonso chikuoneka kuti tsogolo layamba. Kodi unduna umenewu wakonza zotani pa nkhani zimenezi kuti ngati dziko ngati nzika mwina tikhalenso tikusimba komanso tikulankhula nkhani kapena kuti zinthu zimene takhala tikuziunikira komanso kuzikambirana, boma launika mwa mtundu wanji. Chikukamba pano ndiye kuti ntchito za ulimi mdziko muno zikumakhala zotsikirapo pansi machitidwe ake, chifukwa timatero kuti ngati dziko la Malawi chuma chili munthaka. Pali zambiri zimene timadalira tukamba zoti tikukamba pano ndiye kuti nkhani za msika wa fodya zili mkati kumene kukhala ndithu kubwera madando osiyanasiyana kumafunsa kuti kodi ngati dziko chuma chathu chimene timadalira kuti ndalama yakunja ikhazikike timadalira nkhani za kunsika. Kodi kunsika wa fodya ako tikhoza kunena kuti nkumene kuchokera forex, kodi Mwanamveka akonza zotani ndi unduna wawo kuti kodi tiyende bwanji ngati dziko pa nkhani yolimbana ndi kusowa kwa forex. Timafunanso tinene kuti Amalawi ochuluka akhala akudikira kuti kodi boma lidalonjeza kuti pakhale tsopano zitukuko zosiyanasiyana mdziko muno, komanso nduna umene udabwera ndithu ku nyumba ija ya malamulo ku parliament kumene adafotokoza mwa tsatane kuti ayi ngati boma lakonza njira zosiyanasiyana kuphatikizapo kuti zitukuko mdziko muno zipitirire kuoneka. Ndipo china mwa zimene adafotokoza mu nthawi ya campaign Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika ndi chipani cha DPP anatero kuti akalowa mboma pakhale ndithu zitukuko zimene zichitike mdziko muno kupyolera kuthumba lija la CDF. Funso nkumanena kuti kodi ndalama zimenezi zichokera kuti, chifukwa adazichotsa pa ndalama zokwanira 100 million ya Malawi kupita constituency. Ndipo ananena kuti ife ngati chipani komanso ngati boma la DPP tiyesetsa kunena kuti titengere CDF pa level ina 5 billion yopita ku CDF idzichokera kuti kodi mwanamveka mu ndondomeko zimene akhazikitsa kupyolera ndithu ku nduna umene wa zachuma, kodi menemu muli ndondomeko zimene tizimve tsiku la lero kuti ndi zimene iwo ayisetsa nkuika mkatikati mwa National Recovery Plan? Timatero kuti ayi masomphenya ina aliwonse, munthu ina aliyense amakhala ndi plani, amakhala ndi dongosolo. Ngati dziko tiliso ndi dongosolo, kodi dongosolo lathu nkukhala la mtundu wanji makamaka? Ponena kuti mmene tikulankhula pano ndiye kuti chuma chathu sichili bwinobwino, pakhala pakulankhulidwa zosiyanasiyana, amabungwe akhala kufotokoza zinthu pena sizikuyenda, komanso kumafotokoza kuti ayi ndalama ngakhale zakuno kwathu ku Malawi mabizinesi ena ayima. Ndiye nkumafunsa pamenepa kuti kodi mu National Recovery Plan imene Honorable Mwanamveka akhale ndithu akufotokozera ndithu mtundu wa Malawi, chifukwa monga tanena kale kuti kuno kuli donor community komanso nkhope zochokera kuboma, tikuyembekezera muno kuti zikhala ndithu zili zochuluka. Osayiwalanso kuti ndikuona nkhope tsopano yoti tilankhule nayo mmawa uno kuchokera ndithu ku HRDC. Kamera yathu ndi iyo imene Amalawi akufuna atamva kuti kodi mwadzuka bwanji?
Ndadzuka, ine mwadzuka bwanji?
Ineyo ndadzuka. Tili ndi akayiyatsa mmawa uno, ndipo kuno ndi ku BICC. Tinene kuti choyambirira chatibweretsa kuno nchani?
Zikomo kwambiri. Chimene chatibweretsa kuno ndi msonkhano umene unduna wa zachuma akonza, umwe cholinga ncha kumva maganizo magulu osiyanasiyana.
Kuti camera is that side.
Okay.
Bali watu akutirozera kuti ayi mabeti Amalawi apa. Okay. Tabwera kuti mwina mkhozo
tandiraso. Chimene chatibweretsa kuno ndi msonkhano umene unduna wa zachuma wakonza oti amve maganizo a magulu osiyanasiyana a Malawi pa za ndondomeko ya chuma imene boma lakonza, makamaka ndondomeko yobwezeretsanso chuma mchimake, kuti dziko lathu mwina chuma chibwere mchimake, zinthu ziyambe kuyenda bwino. Ndiye ngati feyo mabungwe omwe saboma atabwera nawo kuno kuti tizamve kuti kodi boma likupanga maplano otani, komanso tizipereka maganizo athu.
Kufika lero pamene tikuyankhulana pano, inu ngati bungwe lomenyera ufulu wa anthu mdziko muno makhala mukulankhulapo pa nkhani ya zachuma. So far tinene kuti chuma chathu chili potani ngati dziko?
Tinene mosapsatira, chuma sichili bwino. Pali mavuto ankhani amene chuma chathu chakumana nacho, mavuto ngati kusowa kwa ndalama zakunja, vuto limene lakhudza magawo osiyanasiyana a chuma cha dziko lino. Monga mukudziwa kuti dziko lathu kwambiri timadalira katundu woyitanitsa choka kunja. Ndiye katundu ameneyu amagulidwa osati makwacha yayi, koma amagulidwa m'madola. Ndiye ndalamayo ikasowa, ndiye kuti katundu amakhala kuti akuvutirapo kuti tiyitanitse katundu ngati mankhwala mzipatala, mafuta, ndi zinthu zina. Mukatokuona Malawi ambiri angathe kunditsimikiza kuti panopa mafuta akuvutabe. Inde petrol ambopezeka, diesel ambopezeka, koma kwa masabata ambiri ndithu posiyeda pompa Malawi timavutika ndithu kuti mafuta akusowa. Sizokhazo, palinso zinthu zina ngati fetereza. Mungatokuona kuti fetereza panopa wadula kwambiri, andi chifukwa chimodzi chimene fetereza kudula nchotena kuti chifukwa choti timayitenesa kunja, dziko lathu libe ndalama zokwanira kuti tizitha kukwanisa kuyitanitsa fetereza ameneyo.
Ticheze nanu kumapeto kwa zonsezi. Thokoza kwambiri. Tikaona ndithu mchipinda chino ndiye kuti nduna ya boma imeneyi ndi Joseph Mwanamveka. Tikuona monso nduna zina za boma zimene tsopano ndiye kuti mwambo ukhale ukuyamba posachedwa apa. Tikhale tikuperekani ndithu kwa amene akutsogolera kuti mwambo umenewu tione kuti ukuyenda bwanji. Kuno ndi ku BICC, kumene ndi ku National Economic Recovery Plan. Bwanji tsopano tione kuti kodi unduna umenewu zimene timacheza pano ndi bambo Michael Kayasa zikhala zotani? Ndikuperekeni ku nsanja tsopano kumene akuyendetsa mwambowo.
I warmly welcome you to this consultative workshop on the National Economic Recovery Plan, in short, NERP 2025 to 2030. The Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Decentralization, Honorable Joseph Mwanamveka, MP, the Minister of Industrialization, Business, Trade and Tourism, Honorable Simon Itai, I do believe that he will join us shortly. This Chief Secretary to the Office of the President and Cabinet, Dr. Justin Saidi. Let me also acknowledge in a special way the presence of Justice Lloyd Muhara, AC, who is the former Chief Secretary to the Office and Cabinet, the Secretary to Treasury, Dr. Cliff Chiunda, the Governor of the Reserve Bank of Malawi, Dr. George Partridge, but also let me acknowledge the presence of your two Deputy Governors, Dr. Kiswe Osimwaka and Mr. Henry Matanga, the Director of Economic Planning in the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Decentralization, Mr. Adwem Zembere, the Chairperson of the National Planning Commission, Professor Richard Nkandawire, and all commissioners present here from the National Planning Commission, senior government officials, your excellencies, ambassadors and members of the diplomatic corps, captains of industry and private sector representatives, again in a special way acknowledging the presence of the president of the MCCI, Mr. Ronald Ngwira, and your CEO from the MCCI, Ms. Daisy Kambalame, members of the civil society, representatives of academia, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Mwadzuka bwanji. Zikomo. It is my distinct honor, but also privilege, to serve as program director for this very, very important engagement, and I'll come back to this later on. But before we start our proceedings, may I kindly invite Ms. Mona Muhango from the Ministry of Finance to lead us into an opening prayer.
The Honorable Minister of Finance, Honorable Joseph Mwanamveka, all protocols observed, let us pray. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, dear God, we thank you for the grace of life and for the opportunity to meet today to discuss and deliberate on the National Economic Recovery Plan. As we are planning for our nation, looking at the recovery from 2025 to 2030, we pray that the discussions here will be that should build our nation, but also ensure economic growth. In the name of Jesus, we have prayed. Amen.
Thank you very much, Madam. We started the proceedings, I started the proceedings before introducing myself. So with your indulgence, allow me to briefly introduce myself. My name is Philip Madinga. I stand before you first and foremost as a Malawian citizen. A Malawian citizen who is deeply committed to the progress and prosperity of our country. Like many of you here today, I do hope you agree with what I'm about to say. I am driven by a strong belief that Malawi's future will be decided by the choices we make now, but I think more importantly, the discipline with which we implement them. In my professional capacity, I serve as the Chief Executive Officer for Standard Bank PLC here in Malawi. But I also wear two hats. One hat is that of the President of the Bankers Association of Malawi. The other hat I wear is a commissioner on the National Planning Commission. I've been on the commission since 2017. This is my second and final term. However, today I'm wearing none of those hats. I am here in a much broader capacity. I'm here as a stakeholder in Malawi's development. I'm here committed to supporting efforts that restore macroeconomic stability, that unlock growth, but also that ensure that we improve the livelihoods of our people and communities that we serve. It is therefore both a privilege and an honor to facilitate this very, very important engagement. And I know many of us have been asking for this engagement. So it's an opportune time for us to interact with the minister, to interrogate what is in the National Economic Recovery Plan. Our agenda this morning is brief. We've started slightly late, but I'm sure we should be able to catch up on time. Once I've made my initial remarks, I will invite the Secretary to Treasury to welcome us before he invites the Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Decentralization to make his remarks, but also to officially open this workshop. After which, we will hear from the Director of Economic Planning, Mr. Nzembere, who will take us through the key elements of the National Economic Recovery Plan, 2025-2030. We will then take a brief break after the presentation from Mr. Nzembere. We will also take that opportunity to take a group photo so that we can have something for history, where we'll say we met on that day and we agreed certain things and we've been able to achieve them. So we'll use the opportunity when we have the healthy break to take a photo, group photo with the ministers and the dignitaries that are in front of us. Then we'll come back for the second segment of the workshop. And the second segment of the workshop is really to get responses, some reactions, some reflections, and recommendations from selected institutions or stakeholders. I think they're on the program: ECAMA, MCCI, UNIMA. We have NAP there, and lastly, BAM will also share their response. I'll then later on moderate a plenary session. I was hoping that I would have a fireside chat with the minister, but he has assured me that he should be able to address some of the issues that I was going to discuss with him during his opening remarks. We are hoping that as we get to midday, we will then call to action. Those of you that have interacted with me and interacted, I think, with the minister and many others, it's not worthwhile to have a conversation and then you don't have actions, the things that we should follow through. And that will be led by the Secretary to Treasury, and then the minister will close the workshop. We're hoping that by midday or just about 12:30 or at worst maybe 1 p.m. we should be done. So the question, ladies and gentlemen, honorable ministers and distinguished guests, is why are we here today? I think today's workshop has been convened to achieve many and a number of objectives. One of which, as I was chatting with a couple of people and participants, is really how we get private capital mobilization at the center of the success of the economic recovery plan that will be shared this morning. But I wanted to single out 5 that I would call key aspects and objectives for the session. One is obviously all of us want to hear what is contained in the National Economic Recovery Plan. Secondly, is to reflect on and refine the key proposals that are contained in that National Economic Recovery Plan before they are implemented. That's why this is being called a consultation. Third is to build consensus around priority economic reforms, but also recovery interventions. And fourthly, is to identify implementation risks, resource requirements, but also partnership opportunities. You get to hear, I think, some of the responses. I'm hoping that we can touch on partnerships, especially public-private partnerships. And then finally, the final objective, which is equally important, is to strengthen governance, shared ownership, and commitment amongst the institutions that will be critical to the delivery of the National Economic Plan. The plan has been developed in response to a set of major economic challenges which are currently confronting Malawi, some of which you've heard about. They include food insecurity, inflationary pressures, foreign exchange constraints, public debt vulnerabilities, but also structural weaknesses in the key productive sectors. But more importantly, this work does not begin from a blank page. It has been informed, and the Minister will share later on, and probably the ST, by the contribution of several national institutions and stakeholder platforms that have already shaped the elements of the country's economic reform agenda. And it includes the National Planning Commission, which is being represented here by the chairperson and the commissioners. We've also had input. There's been input that has come from the public sector, private sector, the academic, the civil society, but also the development partner bodies. I wish to emphasize, I do hope that the Minister, I'm not taking out of 10 here, the National Economic Recovery Plan does not replace Malawi's long-term plan, MW 2063. Those of you that have read it, and as you see from the presentation, it complements but also refocuses the key initiatives contained in that vision so that we can focus on implementation and execution. I think more especially, as you hear from the presentation from Mr. Zembere, is how it also complements the Malawi Implementation Plan 1, which has now an accelerator strategy, so that we implement and the identified opportunities and priorities. So today's session, before I call the Secretary of Treasury to share his welcome remarks, should therefore be seen not only as a forum for reaction, and I'll come back to this point later on, but also as an opportunity to recognize the contribution that has been made by the many institutions, to build on the work already done, but also to sharpen the alignment around the actions, the responsibilities, and partnerships required for effective implementation. Keep the word implementation. The plan seeks to restore macroeconomic stability. It seeks to strengthen fiscal and debt sustainability. It also seeks to promote economic growth. It also promotes investments in productive sectors, but it also seeks to safeguard vulnerable populations, at the same time improve governance and accountability. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the opening segment of our program. And to kickstart our workshop, it is my honor to invite Dr. Cliff Chunda, the Secretary to Treasury, a gentleman who plays a pivotal role in the management of government fiscal policy, public financial management systems, but also the coordination of economic priorities. Dr. Chunda is not new to the Minister of Finance, a role which he serves as government's principal financial advisor, but also the administrative head of the Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Decentralization. He has more than 3 decades of distinguished service in the Malawi public service. He has built a reputation as a seasoned economist and a public sector leader with deep expertise in economic policy, fiscal management, and institutional reform. Of course, over his career, he served in many institutions. He served in the OPC and several other government MDAs. Please welcome me, allow me welcome the Secretary to Treasury, Dr. Chunda, to deliver his introductory remarks on the National Economic Recovery Plan and to set a tone for our today's deliberations. he will also invite the Minister for his remarks. Dr. Chunda, you have the floor. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Good morning. I think that's not better. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you very much, the moderator. The Honourable Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Decentralization, Honourable Joseph Machola Mwanamveka, MP. Let me also recognize the Minister of Information, Dr. Namalomba, the Governor of the Reserve Bank of Malawi, Dr. Partridge, the Chairman of the Planning Commission, Professor Mkandawire. We also have the Commissioner General for Malawi Revenue Authority, Mr. Tambulas, Your Excellencies for the UN, Japan, Iceland, and also the IMF manager who are here, all principal secretaries here, senior government officials, representatives from the industry, the private sector representatives, and let me also acknowledge the President for ECAMA, representatives from various financial institutions, members of the academia and research institutions, representatives of the civil society organizations, distinguished invited guests, media practitioners, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, good morning. It is my honor and privilege this morning to welcome you all to this very important National Consultative Interface meeting on the National Economic Recovery Plan for covering 2025 to 2030 for the country. My humble duty this morning is to invite the Honourable Minister of Finance to officially open this workshop. But before I do that, allow me to just say a few words. Firstly, I would like to join the Director of Ceremonies, Mr. Madinga, in welcoming you to this very important national event, and sincerely thank you for responding positively to our invitation and for also taking your time to come and participate in this national exercise. Honourable Minister, with your guidance, the Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Decentralization, soon after the new government took over power, started consolidating development plans in order to come up with a strategy that will restore growth in the country. And this plan that is before us this morning is also a mirror to the manifesto of government. And it is also a practical roadmap, pathway for restoring macroeconomic stability, reviving economic growth, strengthening fiscal and also debt sustainability, and also restoring food security and rebuilding confidence in the economy. Yeah. The NEP is therefore not merely another policy document. It is a focused, homegrown recovery framework intended to provide immediate, short-term, and also medium-term measures over 5 years aimed at restoring stability and also improving livelihoods for Malawians. The plan draws from extensive technical reviews, policy analysis, macroeconomic assessments, sector consultations, and also draws lessons from previous implementation experiences that we've had as a country. It is also aligned to the aspirations of the Malawi 2063, as already alluded by the Director of Ceremonies. And it also seeks to lay a foundation for sustainable and inclusive economic transformation. Honourable Minister and distinguished participants, the NEP focuses on the key strategic areas, including fiscal management and efficiency, monetary and exchange rate stabilization, external sector recovery, investments in productive sectors such as agriculture, tourism, mining, and manufacturing. It also focuses on infrastructure development, governance, and also anti-corruption reforms, and it also looks at social protection mechanisms aimed at safeguarding vulnerable populations in the country. The recovery agenda further recognizes the importance of restoring investor confidence, improving productivity, supporting exports, also strengthening food security, and also creating an enabling environment for private sector-led growth. Honourable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, government recognizes that economic recovery cannot be achieved by government alone. It requires broad-based participation, national ownership, constructive dialogue, and also very strong collaboration among all key stakeholders. It is for this reason that today's interface meeting is very critical and important to our country. We are here to listen to your views, your recommendations, and your technical input in order to strengthen the National Economic Recovery Plan before its finalization and implementation. Your expertise, experience, and perspectives will greatly enrich the recovery framework and contribute towards ensuring that the plan is practical, is implementable, is inclusive, and also is responsive to the realities facing our economy. I therefore wish to encourage all participants to engage actively, openly, and also to candidly throughout today's discussions, be active and take part in the discussions. The economic challenges facing our country are real, and therefore our discussions today must also be real and realistic. I also wish to express profound appreciation to you, Honourable Minister, for the guidance, support, and stewardship you have provided throughout this process of consolidating this particular plan. And it is both from the time you were outside government up to now when you are in government. We thank you, Honourable Minister, for that support. Honourable Minister, let me also take this opportunity to sincerely thank the PS's Economic Planning and Development, the PS for Economic Planning and Development, and its staff, the Reserve Bank Governor and staff, and also the various senior management of the Ministry of Finance that worked tirelessly to have this document finalized. Your efforts, commitment are greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for that support. It is now, they always say with these few words, it is now my singular honor and privilege to invite the Honourable Minister of Finance Economic Planning and Decentralization, Honorable Joseph Machola Manamveka, MP, to address us and officially open the National Consultative Workshop on the National Economic Recovery Plan. I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm pleased to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Shadik Namaromba, who is the Minister of Information and Digitalization. We also have amongst us the Chief Secretary to the President and Cabinet, Dr. Justin Saidi. I thank you very much for honoring us, Chief Secretary. We're also privileged to have the former Chief Secretary, Mr. Lloyd Muhara, SC. Thank you also for your coming. We have Mr. Philip Madinga, who has already introduced himself, who is the one who is guiding this session. He happens to be the CEO of Standard Bank. He is the president of Bankers Association of Malawi, BAM, and also a member of National Economic Planning. Let me also recognize the presence of Professor Nkandawire, the chairperson of National Planning Commission. We have the governor of the Reserve Bank of Malawi, Dr. George Partridge. I'm sure we all know George, with very wide experience, knowledge. I want to thank you for the input and the support you are giving. And also your two deputies, Mr. Matanga and also Iskisu Smaka, the Deputy Governor. We have Council Felix Tamblas, who is the Commissioner of the Malawi Revenue Authority. And also we have a number of principal secretaries that are amongst us. I just want to recognize you, but on a special note, let me also recognize Mr. Patrick Kabambe, who was the CEO of PP Commission, but now is the PS for Economic Planning and Development. Your Excellencies, we have amongst us the United Nations Regional Coordinator, Madam Rebecca Ada Don't. I hope I'm right. And then we also have His Excellency, the Ambassador of Japan, His Excellency Naito Yasushi. We have His Excellency, the Iceland Ambassador, Dr. Davio Janasoi, or something like that. Welcome. We also have the IMF Country Manager, Mr. Nenan, who is amongst us. We have the World Bank Acting Country Manager, Mr. Giacomo Angel. Welcome. And also we have Her Excellency, the German Ambassador, Madam Sane. Welcome. My apologies if I have missed any of you from our embassies. We also have amongst us Dr. Bertha Bangara Chikaza, who is the president of Economic Association of Malawi, and also is the lecturer, senior lecturer in the University of Malawi. We also have members of the academia. I've seen a number of vice chancellors and the chairpersons of the board of almost all universities. We have members from the civil society, Let me thank you because you have been calling us that we want to be part and parcel of this consultation. I would like to thank you for coming. We have members of the business community led by Mrs. Deze Kambarame, who is also the president of MCCI. We have members or senior government officials that are here, and also we have our brothers and sisters in the fourth arm of government, the media. Thank you for being here. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to this National Economic Recovery Plan consultative meeting with great honor and a deep sense of responsibility. At the outset, Honorable Minister of Information and all the excellencies, allow me to join the Secretary of Treasury for sincerely thanking all the stakeholders that I've mentioned here today for honoring this government's invitation to participate in this very important consultative workshop on the National Economic Recovery Plan, commonly known as NEP. I'm quite excited because there were some people who did not believe we have it. They thought that when we were saying we have the National Economic Recovery Plan, we are just talking about it. I've seen in the comments, but I am sure now we are here. We have the document. We want you to validate it so that together we can implement this very important document. Honorable Minister, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, your presence here today reflects a shared commitment to the future of our country, and it demonstrates the importance of collective responsibility in rebuilding our economy and restoring hope to the people of Malawi. Honorable Minister, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let us be honest with ourselves as a nation, because we need to be honest and candid about it. The economic situation we are facing today did not just emerge overnight. It never just came overnight. The challenges we are confronting today, as our president says, they are money-made. And it's true, please, I repeat, the problems that we are facing today are money-made. And the president says if they are money-made, also the man can also resolve the problems. And the people that can resolve that are the people in this room. And the challenges that we are confronting today, they are very deep, structural, and they are accumulated over the years, but they were exacerbated in the past 5 years. They were exacerbated in the past 5 years. This gathering is therefore more than a symbolic exercise or a fulfillment of a campaign promise. It is not. It is a decisive step in our collective responsibility to reset Malawi's economy, restore confidence, and build the prosperous future we all envision. Upon our taking over government, led by His Excellency Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika, on the 16th September 2025 general election, we encountered what we never expected. Of course, we knew that the economy was in problems, but definitely not to the extent of the problems that were found. And these are problems that were made by the previous government. Honourable Minister, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to assure you that what we saw when we came into government is totally unbelievable. It is totally unbelievable. I just wanted to give you a snapshot of what we found. And these are statistics that you can check and confirm. We found inflation at around 30%. That is in September 2025. But in 2019, inflation was 9%. So in a period of 5 years, inflation rate had jumped almost 3 times, more than 3 times. Public debt stock had risen to 24 trillion. 24 trillion in September 2025. And yet, in 2019, we found we left the public debt at 4.1 trillion, meaning that in a period of 5 years, our public debt had jumped 6 times. In a period of 5 years, it jumped from 4 trillion to 24. One wonders, how did we spend that much and we can't see anything on the ground? Forex reserves, less than a week. And yet, in 2020, when we left, we had almost 4 months of import cover and close to $1 billion at the Reserve Bank of Malawi. Food insecurity, at that time in September 2025, and this was also reported by the ministry then, that we had 4 million people that were exposed to hunger. And as we know, in 2019, yes, there was food shortage, not up to 4 million. The statistics shows us that we had almost 1.8. We also had a widened fiscal deficit at 12% in 2025, when it was 6.5% in 2019. This is 12% of GDP, from 6.5% of GDP in 2019 or 2020. We also found elevated debt servicing obligations covering over 50% of domestic revenue in 2025, and yet it was 17% in 2019. Total interest payments, this is what we pay for the money that we have borrowed. Only interest, hovering to 90% of the total domestic revenue. Meaning that out of the taxes that we collect, out of the non-tax revenue that we collect, the charges and fees, put together, 90% of that we are paying interest for both domestic as well as foreign. Meaning that it's only 10% that remains for us to use, for us to run government, for ORT to pay, and to pay other mandatory expenses. Economic growth was at 2.7% in 2025, but also you can also compare the same in 2019 our GDP was 5.8% in 2019. Despite that, during that time, we had COVID. And also, I want you to take note that the statutory expenses, these are salaries, wages, pensions, and gratuities, they consume 90% of the total domestic revenues. So these developments have negatively affected households, businesses, production systems, and service delivery. Let me now ask us who are in this room, in this situation that I've just presented here, where you have a debt of 24 trillion, against of total revenue per annum, according to the budget, is 6 trillion. Total revenue that we collect per annum, and it's about 6 trillion. I think the Commissioner General can confirm that. Meaning that if we stopped everything else, we stop paying salaries, we stop paying ORT, we stop with subventions to statutory corporations, it will take us 4 years just to pay our debt. Because if you take 6 trillion into 24, it's 4 years. It means it will take us 4 years just to be paying debt without stopping all the payments that the government is supposed to pay. And stopping even the development. That's what it means. So what could we have done? I want to address the nation that I'm aware people are suffering. I'm really aware that the taxes that we have imposed, the levies that were imposed, it's not something that we're happy with. Actually, at times we are asking ourselves, why did I find myself at this time? But somebody has to take the challenge. And I had to take the challenge. If we did not do what we have done so far today, if we did not raise the taxes, if we did not have the revenue, the levies that we have, I would guarantee you by today, we would not be able to pay the salaries for our civil service. That I can guarantee you. If we did not do what we have done today, I will guarantee you wouldn't have been talking about medicine in hospitals. Almost impossible. If we did not, for example, look at the automatic pricing of fuel, today we shouldn't have been talking about development. I'm sure you have seen that we have started renovating our roads. Almost all the roads is because of the tough decision that we made. Not that we're happy, but everything could not stop. I was there. Actually, this is my third coming in the Ministry of Finance. You can look at history. Whether did I impose the taxes that we have seen today, that we are seeing today. Look at the previous budgets that I had, both as ST as well as Minister of Finance. We never had the levies that we have today. It is because of the situation that we found. I know I've had interaction with a number of stakeholders, including NGOs. They are telling us remove the levies, reduce the fuel. But then the choice that we need to make today, we need to make a decision today as Malawians that we should forget development. We should forget having our people pay the salaries. We should forget having medicine in hospitals and stop everything else so that we are happy. I don't know whether we would have chosen that route. But the beauty that the taxes that we have imposed, the levies that we have imposed, They are mostly targeting the haves, those that have, so that the people in the village should also benefit. To me, I take this period as temporary. I don't think it is here to stay. But it depends on this, us to do this. What also surprises me is that the very people that have destroyed this country in the past 5 years are the same people now saying, why are we in this situation? And we are clapping hands for them. And we are happy. And yet the statistics are here. They have destroyed this economy. We are suffering today because of the very people. And yet we clap hands for them. We support them in the name of politics. It will never help us. We must be realistic. Let's state the facts as they are and then deal with the issues, the reality. Let's take out politics aside, because our president has said, this is no time for politics. This is no time for campaign. This is the time to restore our economy. So, Honorable Minister, Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today we are here to begin honest, solution-driven discussions about our challenges and opportunities. Our nation is at a pivotal moment, and the choices we make now will determine the trajectory of our economy for the generation to come. As a Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Decentralization, I have the honor, and I would like to thank my President for giving us a go-ahead to have this consultative meeting on the theme, Resetting Malawi, Restoring People-Centered Microeconomic Growth and Prosperity. This theme reflects our shared commitment to creating an economy that is resilient, inclusive, and built on sustainable and inclusive growth. It is an invitation to all stakeholders to contribute their expertise, ideas, and dedication to the national effort. Malawi is at a crossroad in our development agenda. The challenges before us are stark. The economic distress we face today is undeniable. However, our collective resilience, ingenuity, and determination have always driven our nation's progress. We are not here merely to recount on our struggles, nor are we here to resign ourselves to the economic stagnation. We are here to seek solutions, adopt strategies that will put us on a sustainable growth trajectory and ensure that we build an economy that works for every Malawian. This is not just another policy discussion. It is an urgent call to action, a crucial moment for us stakeholders to unite with purpose and resolve the challenges we have. We have also gathered here in order to create a powerful platform on which government officials, policymakers, business leaders, economists, industrial experts, development partners, and other key figures that are in this room to come together and shape the future of Malawi. The insights, the diverse perspectives, and the actionable recommendations that emerge from this discussion must transcend theoretical frameworks and drive real and impactful decisions that will guide our nation forward. Throughout our engagement, we also focus on practical strategies to restore macroeconomic stability and pave the way for long-term economic transformation. This includes developing policies that stimulate economic growth and create sustainable job opportunities for the rapidly growing population. I don't know whether, fellow Malawians, I don't know whether I've considered this, the level of unemployment that we have. The young men and women that are graduating from universities almost every year is almost 500,000 people. 500,000 every year they are graduating and they have no jobs. Every other year, 500,000. 5,000. What will happen if we don't address this problem? It's a time bomb. It's a time bomb. And these young men, they may be angry with us, particularly us that are in this room. Not the government, but all of us. And also, I don't know whether we are aware that our economy is growing at a lower rate compared to population. Our economy is growing. There are more people that are being born than economic growth, meaning that we are becoming poorer and poorer. Because if the population is growing faster than economic growth, it means per capita income, because normally it's the population which is the denominator, meaning that poverty will be increasing. So if we don't address unemployment, if we don't address the issue of population, I will guarantee you, we can write theses, we can write these papers, we'll still have a problem. This includes developing policies that stimulate growth, as I've said, and create sustainable jobs for rapidly growing population. We will also examine in this discussion the structural reforms that are necessary to unleash private sector full potential and make it the engine of growth that drives job creation and innovation. Before we came back to government, His Excellency Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika did ask a few people, including myself, to assemble a team of professionals to look at a document that we thought to be National Economic Recovery Plan, and to see how best we can develop and formulate a workable economic recovery plan. Our president knew, some of us were not sure, but our president knew that we were going back into government. Actually, when he told us to start preparing a national economic recovery plan, we were asking the president, are we going to go into government? He said, yes, I know. He was quite certain. So he assembled a team to come up with a national economic recovery plan. And the document that we're going to see, it has been worked out by the team in the ministry and other stakeholders. And some of the stakeholders, they are here because we involved also people from the private sector that were working with us, even before into government. And I would like to thank you for your contribution for that. So this meeting is there to validate, to make your comments, because it's a living document. We need to do it so that there must be a buy-in from each and everybody here to make sure that we own this document and implement it together. Honorable Minister, Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today's Malawi public debt, as I've said, it has reached unprecedented levels that should concern every patriotic citizen. When public debt approaches levels of 90% of gross domestic product, GDP, so our debt is neck to neck with GDP. It's 90%. I think we must all recognize that this is not sustainable. And you cannot leave it as is. No country can continue on such a path indefinitely without serious consequences for future generations, especially when your budget is predominantly a consumption budget. And let me also say this clearly, this should not be a mistaken for finger pointing. I'm not finger pointing to the previous government. I'm only stating facts. I'm only stating what is on the ground. It's not about finger pointing. And some of us, there are times for politics and there are times to say what is supposed to be done. However, if we are serious about solving our economic problems, we must also be honest enough to understand how we arrived here. We cannot correct a problem if we refuse to confront its causes. As a nation, we must also learn from the past policy slippages, weak fiscal discipline, and delayed reforms that contributed to the difficult economic situation that we are facing now. Fortunately, fate has placed us on the responsibility of correcting these imbalances on our generation, and in particular, on the head of our President, Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika, and his government, to make sure that we address these issues. Honorable Minister, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, while the challenges before us are serious, they are not insurmountable. And this government has demonstrated commitment to doing exactly that. That's why His Excellency Professor Peter Mutharika has constantly said and reminded us that the problems that we are facing today are man-made and can also be solved by a man. This important statement carries a profound message, and this is the message. It means through sound leadership, which we have, discipline, hard work, strategic reforms, and collective national effort, Malawi can restore macroeconomic stability. We can also rebuild confidence and revive productivity and return to the path of growth and prosperity. Honourable Minister, Your Excellencies, the Governor, ladies and gentlemen, government has already begun implementing difficult but necessary reforms aimed at restoring macroeconomic stability and also rebuilding confidence in the economy. These measures have not been easy, as I've said. We have undertaken serious fiscal consolidation measures, including revision of the tax policies, adjustment in VAT, and increases in selected fees and charges, and also reforms at improving domestic revenue mobilization. Difficult decisions have also been made in the energy and fuel sector, including fuel price adjustment in order to address growing fiscal and external sector pressures. Let me thank the Commissioner General for MRA that and the measures that were put in place now, the reforms, they are bearing fruits. And I'm sure you have heard the Commissioner General announcing that we are even managing to pass the target that we put in the budget, the revenue. And that is now easing the pressure that we have. And Commissioner General and your team, I would like to thank you for the effort, for the support that you are giving, and I hope you will maintain that pace so that at a later stage you should be saying, I think we have done it, and let's reverse the taxes that we have. Government fully recognizes the impact that these measures are having on households, businesses, transport operators, farmers, and construction sector. We are fully aware, and we fully understand it, and we are very sympathetic about it. We understand the pressure that rising costs are placing on ordinary Malawians. Honourable Minister, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and all Malawians watching or listening to us today, I would like you to know the fact that government has taken these difficult decisions, demonstrating seriousness, commitment, and willingness to confront reality rather than postpone problems for the future generation, which our friends have done. I'm sure you agree with me that we wouldn't have been in this situation if we had adjusted fuel way back. But because we delayed to adjust the fuel, that's why we have this huge adjustment. That's why we have a lot of debt in the oil industry. I'm sure some of you that are coming from there. We have 1.4 trillion debt or under recoveries by Nokima, together with Mera, And if you can ask all our oil marketing companies, be it Total Energy, Puma, they will tell you that there are huge areas that have been created just because we delayed to make the right decision at the right time. That's why I liked I think there was a monitor that was done by the World Bank, the cost of inaction. I still remember that. The cost of inaction. We're here today, we have some of these problems because of failure to make a decision at the right time because of politics. I know why you are not doing it. That's why we are in this situation. Honourable Minister, my apologies, I will take a bit of time, but I'm almost concluding. But it is important that I should highlight the facts as they are. Honourable Minister, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time when a nation must choose between temporary discomfort associated with reforms and permanent economic decline caused by inaction. It is a common knowledge, and you can agree with me, that the immediate past administration chose the latter. They chose inaction. This National Economic Recovery Plan that we are discussing today is therefore not built on promises of easy solution. It is built on realism, discipline, sacrifice, and implementation. The recovery agenda further also recognizes the importance of returning investor confidence, improving productivity, supporting exports, strengthening food security, and creating an enabling environment for the private sector-led growth. Besides, it also aligns to the Malawi Agenda 2063, as Philip also alluded to. It doesn't conflict. This NEP actually complements what is in the agenda, Malawi Agenda 2063, in terms of philosophy and in terms of aspirations. And in addition to that, this NEP also is consistent with our manifesto, the DPP manifesto, because the two are supposed to talk to each other. The recovery framework also recognizes the importance of decentralization and people-centered development by ensuring that development reaches communities and rural areas across the country. That's why today we are talking about CDF, Constituency Development Fund, almost 1.4 trillion. And that money is going to the rural areas to develop those areas. And I know there are some that are doubting that will not implement it. I want to guarantee you, CDF is here to stay. It will deliver what our president promised, and so that the people out there, the people in the rural areas that are suffering today, they should be able to see a difference, a change in life. And for them to realize that they made the right decision to make our president, Professor Dr. Tarika, their state president. Economic recovery also requires sacrifice, discipline, and commitment from all of us. There are no shortcuts to rebuilding an economy. The reforms that we are proposing may require difficult decisions and the prioritization of scarce resources. However, these reforms are necessary if you are to restore stability, build confidence, and create opportunities for future decisions. There are some who don't believe that we still have problems. They're still demanding. They're still demanding certain things that they think they get. We understand it. But unfortunately, it's difficult to meet all the requirements of each and everybody. And I want the support from you. Government alone cannot achieve the recovery agenda. We require support and participation of the private sector, development partners, financial institutions, professional bodies, academia, civil society, the media, and all patriotic Malawians. This recovery plan belongs to all Malawians. It is therefore our expectation that today's consultation will generate constructive ideas, practical recommendations. Let me repeat, practical recommendations. we have all said, actually, there are certain statements we all say. We say the private sector is the engine, and you have said it all along. We still believe that we need to make sure that we export more than we import. This is what we have been saying all the time. And I'm sure in many papers, in many presentations, but what we're saying, what is that we need to do to achieve that? That's the question that we are here. Don't tell us theory that we already know. That even the one who is at the university now, in school now, knows that we need to export more than what. Right? Everyone knows that we need to do value addition. Don't come and tell us the obvious. Can you come here and tell us what is it that we need to do to address the challenge that we have? This is just my request. My colleagues that are going to make a presentation, please don't give us theory. Give us practical solutions that we need. Time for theory, time for speeches and all that is gone. That's why some of us, actually me and the team at the Ministry of Finance, together with the Reserve Bank, we hardly sleep just to resolve the challenge that we have. You come to the Ministry of Finance at 8 o'clock, you find everybody's in the office. You'll be wondering what you are doing, just because to address the challenges that we are facing today. Maybe I've said a lot. I need to conclude to give time. I'm sure the Master of Ceremony is looking at me. Now there are questions that we need to ask ourselves, the difficult question that we need to ask ourselves. But perhaps the bigger question in this, if you are all recognized that these challenges, what must we do now and do it differently to unlock the potential that we all know Malawi has? What should we do differently now? Because we can't be saying the same thing all the time, as I've said. This is why the current recovery plan is very important. It is also about moving from talking about our problems to implement practical solutions that can restore productivity, rebuild confidence, and improve the lives of many Malawians out there. What is required now is unity of purpose, policy consistency, discipline, accountability, and implementation focus. Honorable Ministers, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the task before us is difficult, but as I've said, is achievable. The journey ahead will require courage and national unity. I firmly believe that Malawi has the potential, it has the people, we have the resources, we have the institutional capacity, and above all, the right leadership of Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika to recover and prosper once again, provided we remain committed to doing things right. We have always said Malawi is endowed. We have plenty of water. Plenty of water. But we have many Malawians that are not able to find clean and potable water as we speak today. And yet, we have a lot of water resources just passing through the country. You get it? So the question is, what do we need to use to do that? We are talking about now that we have more minerals. I'm told we have even more minerals than like the rutile that we have in Ikasia. We have the rare earth that we have, but you're here lamenting. You get it? And yet, we have the resources that we have. In terms of weather, in terms of sunshine, I'm told we have the best. In terms of capacity, just look at the people that are in this room. The professors that we have in this room. Do we really have a problem to develop this country? Ask ourselves. The people that are just in this room, are you sure we can't find a solution? In fact, yesterday we were laughing. We invited a consultant on something else, which I want to mention. Then we invited somebody within Malawi to get his comments on the same. Like we were saying, by the way, I think we should have invited this one, the local one, as our consultant. There's no reason at all to get this one from outside, meaning that there's a potential locally which we can nurse and which we should harness going forward. Now, as I conclude, let me echo the profound words by Albert Einstein. He said, "In the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity." I repeat, in the midst of every crisis lies a great opportunity. Our gathering today occurs at a critical juncture in Malawi's journey towards economic recovery, sustainable growth and resilience. It is against this background I would like to remind that economic recovery is not an event. It's not an event. It is a journey. And like every journey, it begins with a single step taken together. If we commit to fiscal discipline, if we commit to innovation and unity, then the years ahead will look back on this moment, not as the time when Malawi stumbled, but as the time when Malawi stood tall, charted a new course, and reclaimed its place as a beacon of hope and opportunity in Malawi. And also, the future generations should be saying, yes, we had our parents, we had our grandfathers that turned this economy. You don't want the future generation to be castigating us, what we are doing with the challenges that we have. Together we will restore confidence, together we will build our foundation, together we will reignite growth. Honourable Ministers, Your Excellencies, gentlemen, allow me now, as a singular honor and privilege, to officially open the National Consultative Workshop on the National Economic Recovery Plan 2025-2030. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much.
Another big hand for the Honourable Minister. I think it was necessary to have such a long sort of remarks from the Minister for him to set the tone. I wanted to echo what the Honourable Minister said and to add, I think, my own sort of quote to compliment Albert Einstein. And some of you have heard me talk about this before I sort of react to the Honourable Minister's remarks. A gentleman, and I will quote, by the name of Rahm Emanuel. Rahm Emanuel, in the US in Chicago, there was a lot of crime. Rahm Emanuel eventually went to serve in Obama's cabinet as ambassador to Japan, if I'm correct. And he once said, and I quote, "You never let a serious crisis go to waste." And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things you think you could not do before. End of quote. I don't need to interpret it. Malawi is at a crossroads, but when we look at the challenges based on what the Minister has just said, there are also lots of opportunities. You never let a good crisis go to waste, and we shouldn't let the crisis or the statistics that the Honourable Minister has highlighted, inflation, GDP, public debt, the amount of revenues that we are collecting, go to waste, because we can do something about it. And the people to do something about it are here. Most of us are here. So thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for that very, very comprehensive and inspiring address, but also for setting the tone for our proceedings today. I think the remarks from the Minister have actually underscored both the urgency, but also the task that's before us. But I think what is also spoken about is the collective responsibility. Government can't do it alone. He can't do it alone in the Ministry of Finance. The National Economic Recovery Plan should not just be understood, it must be implemented. And I think today, and the other sort of conversations that we'll be having, as what he's requesting us, is to ensure that we follow through. Problems that we have are money-made or woman-made, but they can also be resolved by all of us. Before I invite the Director of Planning, Mr. Adwell Zembere, I wanted to just acknowledge a few dignitaries that we missed earlier on. Acknowledging the presence of the Commissioner General from MRA, Mr. Tamblas, thanks for joining us, but also acknowledging the presence of the Minister of Information, Dr. Namalomba. But I've also seen in the middle somewhere there that we have the Presidential Advisor on Politics, Honorable Mpepo. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. It just shows the importance of this particular engagement. We'll now move to, we'll have to make a few adjustments in terms of time. I've asked Mr. Zembere if he could try and focus on the critical elements of the NRP. And I think once we've received the report from Mr. Zembere, we'll then break briefly. We'll make it very brief, and then we'll come back and get some reaction and responses from the respective institutions that I did mention earlier on. So at this point, please allow me to invite Mr. Zembere, who is the Director of Economic Planning in the Ministry of Finance. He holds a Master's in International Economics. He's obtained in 2011. He graduated in 2005. He's got an economics degree. He's been in the civil service for 19 years now. He's not new. I think one of the highlights that I would want to share with this audience here is that he was very instrumental at the inception of the National Planning Commission. Planning is in his blood. He understands, and the consolidated NARP, I think he wouldn't be, you know, in a better space to listen from someone who has that whole experience. So please allow me, join me in welcoming Mr. Zembere in front here to share the National Economic Recovery Plan. You have the floor.
Mr. Moderator, allow me to ride on the protocols already established. So I will take you through the National Economic Recovery Plan, and let me ask the colleagues to beam. Yeah, it's there. So that's the outline. Of course, let me thank the Honorable Minister that, sir, you've really helped me to present. Basically, there is nothing new I will talk about. Suffice to say, maybe some of you didn't know that we have a minister who is technical. Okay? So colleagues in the Ministry of Finance can agree with me. The Honorable Minister is able to sit with us, and where technically it doesn't make sense, we'll even probe to say, what do you mean here? And that's the kind of minister that we have. That's why he has actually presented what I'm to talk about. So I'll just summarize, and then maybe a little bit of highlights in a number of areas. So I'll just ask, Honorable Minister, with your permission, at some point I should talk in Chichewa, because I know some people listening are from the rural areas of Malawi, and they are listening to us, and they want to know what is in the National Economic Recovery Plan for them. So at some point I will be changing to Chichewa. All right, so the Honorable Minister ably presented the background. You can agree with me. He has talked about the levels of growth. On the background in the National Economic Recovery Plan, what we are talking about is what made government think that we should have an economic recovery plan. It's because of the situation that this country finds itself in. So, you can see the graphs that we are showing there. You know, as economists, we like presenting things simply in form of graphs. So, you can see the GDP trends. Way back 2018, 2019, we were closer to the level that we were aspiring for in the Malawi 2063, which was 6%. But as the years were going, you can see the graph, we are going deep and deep. Meaning performance of the economy is not that admirable. So too, if you look at the fiscal deficit graph, you can see it is widening and widening as the years are going by. Inflation, the Honorable Minister has articulated this one very well. You see the blue line, I'm sure it's blue, not sure if I'm colorblind, but I'm seeing blue. That one is the overall inflation, the headline inflation. We are coming from as high as 30%. Now you can agree with me, it is going down. And that's good news. And as the Honorable Minister was putting it, the National Economic Recovery Plan implementation has already started. And that's why we can see a number of fundamentals now beginning to change. The public debt, I will not have to repeat that. The Honorable Minister mentioned it. The gross official reserves, you see the downward trend over the years. So, these are the triggers that made government think about developing the National Economic Recovery Plan. Of course, we should not forget that as a country, we are experiencing weather shocks almost every year. So, I'm being requested to put some emphasis on what is on the graphs. Pajadimati mpini yobwereza ndimene imaja. Yes, so I will do that. So, you see the first graph. Can you just go back? Just go back. Yes, that slide. GDP growth in 2019, or maybe we start 2018, you can see there around 4.6. 2019 it is growing to around 5.8. But in 2020, there is a dip, about 0.8. Of course, in this year, you may recall we had the COVID-19, which really affected the productivity of the economy. It kind of picked up, giving hope in 2021, but in 2022, we had also a serious problem, moving to 0.9. Then in 2023, it kind of started to go back to recovery, but slightly, 1.9. 2024, still going down, 1.7. Now, with this kind of movement, The Honorable Minister already alluded to the fact that our population growth is always higher than the addition or the productivity of the economy. Now, what that means is, if, say, you were producing, say, for example, 100 million in a year, but your population has grown. If you were 20 people sharing the 100 million, and now you have added people, it means if you share again the 100 million, it means what each one would get would be even lower. That's why we are talking of poverty in Malawi worsening. So that's the point Honorable Minister also alluded to. The fiscal deficit, what it means is government will have to borrow, because there are essential services that government has to provide to the population. Now, when the deficit is widening, this means that we need to borrow more. And you colleagues that follow what happens in the economy will agree with me that this results in a number of problems in the economy. You will start talking of interest rates that are very high. And I think that's where we are coming from. Of course, right now, it is also kind of moderating. Inflation, kukwera kwa zinthu. I think this one, even Malawi and Yake can agree to this. Mitengo ya zinthu yakhala ikukwera kwambiri. Pena kumada bwaso kuti kodi muri nchani chimenechi. Zimenezi ndi zina zimene zapangitsa kuti boma liganize kuti we should have a plan kuti chuma chathu chibwerere mchimake. So, I will go now to the triggers. Of course, the triggers are what I've said. Here, I'm just summarizing. But the exogenous shocks that this economy is experiencing, they are really massive. I always think about what has been happening, at least from what I can remember. I mean, past decade, starting from 2014, for example. This economy has been experiencing disasters, disasters, disasters. Of course, that could not be blamed for the mess in which we are. Definitely others we could have done better. So, the policy slippages, these ones, we needed to manage ourselves. But that's where we are coming from. On the performance of the economic sectors, we just pick the critical sectors. Now, when you see those downward arrows, that's the poor performance in those economic activities. As you can see, agriculture in 2019 grew by 5.9%. But between 2020 and 2025, average 2.2. Manufacturing, this is where we need to be creating jobs. It grew by 7.6% in 2019. But taking an average in the past 5 years, going down to 1.9%. So when the Honorable Minister is saying we are graduating many of our young people, but the economy can't employ them, this is basically what we are saying. If the economy is not performing, the question is, where will they get jobs? So, it's a trigger that we should have a recovery plan. Wholesale and retail, this is another big sector in our economy, second from agriculture. In 2019, it stood at 6% growth. The past 5 years, average 0.3. Mining, you can see 7.4% in 2019. But take the average of the past 5 years, 2.6. So you can see it's a downward trend for each and every economic sector. That should be a concern to all of us. Let's move. Now, I want to focus on the NEP objectives. Actually, Honorable Minister, if you allow me just to focus on this one, and there is no time to continue, then I can go and sit down. Because what comes ahead, the Honorable Minister has already presented. But let me just focus on the objectives. Ndichani chimene tikufuna tipange achieve zolinga za ndondomeko iyi yobwezeretsa chuma mchimake, zolinga zake ndichani. Number 1, tikunena kuti Malawi ngati dziko tikwanitse kumakhala ndi chakudya chokwanira. Achieve food security. Inu munthu amene sanadye ndikuwuzeni sangaganize za chitukuko. Choyambirira munthu adye kenaka aziganiza zina. So number 1 thing, we need to have food in this country, and NEP wants to achieve that. That's number 1. Number 2, NEP ndondomeko yobwezeretsa chuma mchimake, tikufuna kuti chuma chathu chizikwera. Economic growth. This is the only way we can be assured that we will create jobs for our youth. Nanga ana ntchito alembedwa bwanji ngati chuma sichikukwera? Ndeziti vutatu. So cholinga cha ndondomeko iyi nkuti tikwanitse ngati dziko chuma chathu chizikwera. Number 3, investing in economic infrastructure for growth. This is very important. Muja amanenera a master of ceremony ineyo zaka zochepa zimene ndakhalako m'bomamu, ndaona ngati kuti sitikuyika ndalama zokwanira ku zinthu zimene zitha kuthandiza kuti chumachi chizikwera monkerankera. Nthawi zambiri tikumapanga spend kuti tingodya lero. Limenelo ndi vuto lalikulu. So ndondomeko iyi ikufuna kuti tiyike nsanamira zogwirika kuti chuma chathu chizinka chikukwera, timakhala ndi chiyembekezo ngati dziko, ngakhale achinyamata athu nkumadziwa kuti chuma chathu tikuliona tsogolo lake. Number 3, achieve fiscal and debt sustainability. Inu kodi tidzakhala tukongola mpaka naliti? Umankhalira ngongole ngakhale pali babanja zitheka? So as a country we continually borrow and borrow just because we are not able to sustainably finance the expenses that government has to incur. That one is a serious problem, and the NEP wants to address that. Safeguarding the vulnerable population. Now, on this one, mundimvetse bwino. Mujamanenera anduna. Boma likudziwa ndithu kunena kuti ndondomeko zimene zikuyikidwa zina ndi zina kuti chuma chibwezeretsedwe zikupweteka Malawi. Izozo ndizoona ndipo tikuvomerezana. Koma ndondomeko iyi imene tikukhazikitsayi tikuyang'ananso kuti kodi pamene tikupanga recover tikubwezeretsa chumapa anthu amene ali ovutikitsitsa tipanga nawo chani. That is very important because we have people in this country that are vulnerable, and as government we need to take care of them. So that's the objective of NEP, safeguarding the vulnerable population. The other objective, promote good governance and rule of law. Tikufunika tikhale dziko lotsata malamulo pa chilichonse chimene tikupanga. Chifukwa kusayenda bwino kwinaku kwa chumaku ndi chifukwa chaso cha mmene tikupangira zinthu. So we need to ensure that in whatever we are doing there is good governance and the rule of law. Lastly, fight against corruption. Katangale tikuyenera tithane naye kotheratu. So that's another objective. So these are the objectives of the National Economic Recovery Plan. Amalawi anzanga kumene mukumverako zolinga za ndondomeko iyi ndi zimenezi. Ndiye ndingolongosola mwapatali tsopano chifukwa zazikulu kwenikweni ndimafuna ndikhazikike pamenepa. Now, the policy linkages. Honorable Minister already hinted on how the NEP is linked to the Malawi 2063, the MIP 1, and then the overall vision. So, that is clear this far. Let's move. The macroeconomic gains. What are we expecting that we will get if we are to implement the NEP? Number one, we are expecting that GDP will be growing. We are expecting that exports will start increasing once we invest in the real sector of the economy. Government revenue will be increasing. Of course, as we have already experienced, inflation has to go down. Let's proceed. In a nutshell, these are the outcomes of the National Economic Recovery Plan. We are focusing on what we should expect in all the four sectors of the economy: the fiscal sector, the monetary sector, the external sector, and the real sector. So, in the fiscal sector, improving fiscal sustainability, strengthening domestic resource mobilization, enhancing public debt sustainability. Of course, in the monetary sector, the targets are clear. Enhance price stability, strengthen monetary policy effectiveness. External sector, inu ngati dziko tizikhalako ndi ndalama zakunja, koma kuti tikhale nazo ndalama zakunjazo tikuyenera kumapanga zinthu m'Malawi muno nkumakagulitsa ncholinga choti ndalama zakunjazo tizipeze. Chifukwa vuto tili nalo pano lilosowa ndalama zakunjali nchifukwa chonena kuti sitikupanga katundu wokwanira kuti tikagulitse kunjako, chifukwa tu madola aja somangogawa ayi. Mmayenera musinthane ndi zimene mukupanga inuyo ngati dziko. So chimene chikuchitika pano timakonda kugula zakunja kusonyeza kuti ti madola tochepa timene tili natoto tikukapatsa wena ngati ifeyo madolawo situwafuna. Zimene zikutanthauza zimenezo nchifukwa madola sakupezeka nanga sitikukapatsa ena. So as a country we need to start producing and then we can export. In the real sector, this is where we need to invest as a country, because we will need to accelerate our growth and then enhance food security, as I've mentioned, expand productive capacity, and also structural transformation. This is very critical. Can we move ahead? So this is the theory of change. How are the strategic interventions linking to the outcomes, the outputs, and then finally, what's the impact that we are expecting? That's basically what we are talking about here. Of course, at the bottom of it all, we are looking at macroeconomic stability and ensuring that the productive sector is transformed. And the Honorable Minister mentioned the role of the private sector. It's very critical. If the private sector is not coming in, I can assure you we will have problems. Because the private sector is the engine. Government is there just to create an enabling environment. Let's move. Maybe a slide back. Now, the guiding principles. We are aware that we may want to implement everything. Because you see, for a country like ours, by the way, we are still one of the poorest countries in the world. All right? Now, being one of the least developed countries, what it means, almost everything is a priority. You can agree with me. Actually, some of you, you've already perused through the NEP and you are saying, why is this sector not here? What about this one? What about this one? I agree with you. Everything is a priority in a country like ours. But we need first things first. What is it that we need to do to ensure that the other sectors can also start performing? So we need to be realistic, even in the financing. Okay, so fiscal realism is one of the guiding principles. Ziteka kuti tipange chiri chose, siziteka. Tikungoyenera tisankhe zoti tikwanise kupanga, zoti zithandizire madera ena sitinafikirewo. Ncholinga choti zonse ziziyenda. So pamene pafunika kuganiza kwambiri, actually in our discussion, Honorable Minister, we may need to focus on that as well. All right, even in the financing, we need to be realistic. So that's one of the guiding principles. Number two, prioritization and sequencing. Chiyambire nchiti, ndipo tikamaliza kupanga ichichi, chibwerepo nchiti. So that at least as we are moving forward, we can see progress. Number three, policy coherence. Ndondomeko zimene tili nazo m'maundu nosiyana-siyana zizilankhulana. Osati ena akukokera uku, ena akukokera uku. Ndeti manga chinthuchi siziteka. So we need prioritization and sequencing as well as coherence. Of course, private sector empowerment. I can assure you, we can talk here, talk and talk. If the private sector is not forthcoming, I can assure you, we'll come here, maybe after the end of the NEP period, and we'll be talking about the same. Actually, if you followed the development planning process of Malawi, you will discover that we've had these plans actually since 1964. Actually, previously, those of our senior colleagues who were in government then, they tell us that there was the statement of development policies, DevPos. They were there. If you look at them now, you are like, why are we wasting developing policies? Why can't we just implement it? Why? It's because we have not moved. So, private sector needs to come in. Let's move. On the pillars now, there are 5 pillars that we are focusing on. As I said, we've chosen those areas that would be catalytic in nature, so that even the other sectors, though they are not here in the NEP, can start performing. So, we are talking about number 1, fiscal management and efficiency. The Honorable Minister already indicated the policy measures that are there. So I will not waste time there. Strengthening monetary and exchange rate policy. I've touched on this as well, so I will not belabor the point. External sector development, that's another strategic pillar. Real sector investments. I've also touched on that. Safeguarding and protecting the vulnerable. This one is also a very critical pillar. Let's move. So now, bear with me, because now I will be cruising so that I can close and conclude in my presentation. So, these are the details. I'll just highlight some of the policy interventions that we are proposing. Like under fiscal management, our aim is to increase tax to GDP ratio. The measures the Honorable Minister already talked about. Strengthening expenditure discipline. We now have austerity measures in place. And I think they are bearing fruits. Yeah, already. Accelerate rural development through decentralization. Actually, everyone is talking about the CDF now. That's what we want to do, and that has already started happening. Going forward, in the monetary sector, strengthening foreign exchange supply. So, the low-hanging fruit there, this country, Honorable Minister talked about it, we are blessed with natural resources, minerals inclusive, but we are not really benefiting from these natural resources. Can we start scaling up in terms of the gold purchases? We need also to manage the forex repatriation period. On the monetary policy effectiveness, currently we are following a tight monetary policy so that we can manage even inflation. Let's move. The details are in the plan. If you have registered, we'll share the draft so that maybe later on you can give us detailed comments. But I know some already have seen it. So maybe we can go to number 5. The others have already talked about. Safeguards and social protection mechanisms. Mujandanenera kuonetsetsa kuti amalawi eni ake amene ali ovutikitsitsa akuthandizidwa. So nkhani ya mtukula pa khomo boma lipitiriza. Komanso kuonetsetsa kuti anthu akapita ku chipatala atha kupeza thandizo. Tiyeni tipitirire. So pali zina zimene tayika mu ndondomeko iyi zimene sizili ngati nsanamira zenizeni koma ndizothandizira kuti nsanamira zija zigwire. So we are talking of energy. Mphamvu, magetsi azipezeka. Titani kuti magetsi azipezeka. Ndiye we have expanding and modernizing electricity generation capacity. Strengthening transmission, distribution, and grid stability. Enhancing regional power, trade, and energy security. These are some of the strategies. You see them when you go to the document itself. On infrastructure and ICT, this is another enabler. Honorable Minister talked about rehabilitation of roads, okay, the rail transport, the air transport. Of course, ICT as an enabler, we need to focus on that. Of course, the good governance, rule of law, and fight against corruption, we need this one seriously guarded. Otherwise, this is where Malawi is losing a lot of resources that could have gone towards developing the country. Can we move to next slide? Proposed structural policy changes. So there are other policy changes that will have to be implemented to support what we are proposing, like in the health sector. At least muntu amene akhoza okwanitsa kulipira kuchipatala. Ino alekeranji ukalipira ngati atha kukwanitsa. Zithandiza kuti kandalama kamene boma litha kupeza kathandizire ku ntchito zina. So there are some that are already on medical insurance. So government is encouraging that at least when you go to hospitals, you can pay. On transport, China chimene chimavuta kwambiri kuti tikanike ngati boma kukonza misewu dziko lonse mwina ngati mwakamodzi imakhala nkhaniso yakupezeka kwa ndalama. Koma tikunena kuti opanga business paokha nawo akhoza kumanga umodzi ndi boma nkunena kuti ife tipangako msewu ife tipangako iyi. Ncholinga choti ndalama za boma zija zizitha kupita ku ntchito zina. Of course, we have seen establishment of toll gates, and we intend to continue doing that so that we can free up some resources to ensure that some essential services are provided for. Let's move now on the implementation. I'm concluding. OPC will be at the top of implementation of this strategy. And in that regard, there is a proposal that there should be a Nerp champion. Kukhale mkulu kumene kuja wa boma woonetsetsa kuti ndondomeko iyi ikuthekadi. Chifukwa mujanenera anduna tatopa nzomango olembazi pamene pa ground sizikuoneka. We need to make sure there is someone who is in charge of this strategy. And then we have a cabinet committee on the economy, the PSS committee. They will ensure that things are happening. And then we have the Ministry of Finance for the fiscal policy implementation. We have the Reserve Bank of Malawi there. Of course, Department of Economic Planning and Development, as well as the National Planning Commission, working hand in hand, ensuring that the secretarial issues are really being coordinated, and we are following up on the implementation. And everyone else in the country is part of the implementation. In this regard, tikunena kuti ndondomeko iyi mwina pachichewa sizimveka bwino. Tinene kuti ndondomeko iyi ndi ya boma. Tsono tikati ndondomeko iyi ndi ya boma, zimaoneka ngati kuti ndi boma limene kuyenera kuti lizipanga. Koma tinene kuti ndondomeko iyi ndi ya Malawi. So tikanena kuti ndondomeko iyi ndi ya Malawi, amene akuyenera kutengapo gawo ndi Malawi wina aliyense amene akukhudzidwa ndi chuma cha Malawi. Ndiye kaya ndi opanga business amene achoka kunja kubwera onsewo, they are part of it. Let me conclude. This is just a snapshot of what we are expecting on the costs in the sectors. So I may not have to waste much time there. Monitoring and evaluation. On monitoring and evaluation, we are planning that we should have a committee that will be overseeing implementation. Let me hasten to say that as the Honorable Minister and ST already alluded to, Nerp is complementing the Malawi 2063. And under the Malawi 2063, recovery plan is watertight. Honorable Minister, Moderator, I thank you for your attention. Sorry for taking your time, but I thought I could indicate that. Thank you.
Let's give him another big round of applause. I know we've taken longer, but I think it was necessary, if you listen to Mr. Zembele, to unpack the National Economic Recovery Plan. And I like what he did, because that's something that we do at the National Planning Commission. When we started in 2018, 2017, 2018, what became very clear was that we were just talking to ourselves, or we were talking to a few in the country, but there's 22 million of us. So I was just confirming with the minister there, Honorable Minister, akuti tu ndondomeko imene iyi ya National Economic Recovery Plan will be translated into several languages. So amalawi anzanga, wherever you are, Sena, Tonga, Tumbuka, Yao, I think we're going to work with EPD. I think the chair of the National Planning Commission is here and EPD is here. I think it's something that we need to do. I think before we break, just a bit of reaction from what he has shared. I think what's becoming very clear from the NERP is that it's not going to be something that gets implemented by government. It's for everyone. It's for every Malawian. And when we say Malawians, it's not just Atsogole, Raminetidimun, the ones that are here. It's everyone that's out there, and I know a number of people are also listening to us. What's also come out very clear from the director of the EPD and the minister is that this is part and parcel of MW 2063. Ndedi mafuna ndangu auza kwa Malawi anzanga komwe muliko kuti masomphenya athu a 2063 amene timanena kuti Malawi amene tikufuna ndoti azikomera aliyense, inclusiveness is actually included in the National Economic Recovery Plan. Mr. Zembele has also reminded us, in a country which is least developed, you would think that everything is a priority. But we need to be very intentional about what are the priorities. Those of you that have seen the presentation, maybe the one thing as we come back from break is for us to reflect, as Madam Temwani Simwaka representing BAM and Madam MCCI there, Deze Kambalame, we want to hear, if you look at the numbers that are being talked about, energy, infrastructure, they are huge, and government won't do it alone. How do we ensure that we mobilize private capital to make this National Economic Recovery Plan a reality and a success? And that's what we'll be hearing when we come back. So we'll break for 10-15 minutes. I'll seek your indulgence. We should have been finishing around midday, but we'll probably take another probably an hour so that the next session, which is about the responses, then I'll come back later to moderate a session. It's very important because this is about consultation. And consultation would not have happened just by the minister and the people from government having presented. So please do stay on, seeking your indulgence. But as we step out, we'll break for 15 minutes. We'll come back here at 11:45. But I would like to request the Honorable Minister if you could remain behind so that we can also handle media interviews. It will take a few moments of your time, then you can grab a cup of tea later on. So let's break. We'll see you in 15 minutes, and then we'll start our next segment of our conversation. Good morning.
timatero kuti tikulandireninso kachiwiri mkatikati ndithu mwa meeting imene ikuchitika kuno ku BICC kumene ndithu kuli nkhani kwenikweni zokhudzana ndi kodi chuma chathu ngati mzika chili pati, tichite bwanji. Boma kudzera kwa nduna ya zachuma yafotokozerapo ziwiri zitatu, ndipo alozako zala makamaka 5 years imene yadusa zaka 5 zikuoneka kuti akuti takhala mngongole zambiri kuchokera pamene boma la DPP lidasiya ngongole pafupifupi 4 trillion, tsopano tili pa 24 trillion. Mkomatero kuti mukuganiza kwawo akadasiya zinthu mmene zililimu kuti mwina asayikeko makamaka kuunika mavuto amene alipo pokweza makamaka misonkho mdziko muno. Kodi funso lakuti tikadabweza motani ngongole zimene tili nazozi. Akutero kuti boma limene latuluka posachedwa apa latika mavuto ngati mzika, ndipo boma limene lilipoli likuyesesa kugwira apa ndi apa nkulozaso chala makamaka kunokima kumene ngongole kumeneko ziliko chifukwa chakuti kudali kuchedwa panga ziganizo pa nkhani yokweza mafuta mzaka 5. So ife tikadali kuno, ndipo nthawi imeneyi ndi nthawi imene anthu akungopumulira kuti mkumano uno upitirirenso kwa mphindi zosachepera 15 malingana ndi iwo amene akutitsogolera. So ndimatero kuti posachedwa apa tibweranso mchipinda chino, koma ndiloleni kuti tidulekaye kuchoka pano tikhalanso tikubwera mkatikati ndithu mwa zochitika zimene zili kuno ku BICC. Ine ndi Moses Makawa. Bwanji tikubwezereni kaye kwa anzathu ku area 2 kumene akhale akutipasira zotsatira, ndipo kunonso zikakonzeka tibwereranso, mukhale pomwepo.
Luntha Television stands as an autonomous faith-based broadcaster with a national and international reach. Experience the difference with Luntha Television, where innovation meets experience. Our dedicated team, backed by cutting-edge technology, ensures seamless execution and unparalleled results. Luntha guarantees credibility and professionalism in all its endeavors and services. We offer, among this, production and broadcasting of jingles, music videos, narratives, documentaries, press services and programs, on occasion or outside, live broadcasting of mass and other church functions, government or NGO functions, and political rallies, creation and broadcasting of special programs, sponsored content, sports and entertainment, and advertising for small, medium and large enterprises. All services are offered at competitive prices. Tune in daily to catch Luntha Television on Zuko on Channel 51, Starsat Channel 474, Star Times Channel 474, Topstar 474.